So, the trailer for the Breath of the Wild sequel finally dropped after much anticipation, and boy, was it a good one. While E3 itself was a pretty big disappointment in my eyes, I really think Nintendo did a great job of kind of leaving off on a good note. So without further ado, we're going to jump into this trailer. We're going to kind of dissect it a little bit, maybe pick out some things you saw, maybe didn't see, provide some theories of our own and some other theories, and see what we can pull from this trailer. So in the beginning here, we see Malice sort of just enshrouding the entire area. I'm assuming that this is underground or underneath Hyrule Castle after Ganondorf is awakened. It has a very similar feel to it. So this to me speaks like it's underground Hyrule Castle. And we see this here by Link's arm being enveloped in Malice. And we also see Ganondorf, I'm assuming it's Ganondorf, doing this interesting summoning pose, which is, I'm assuming, him raising Hyrule Castle off of the ground and into the sky. Now, something that's important to note with Ganondorf here is if you look at his left hand, or the way we're seeing him, his right hand closely, you'll see he has like a little hole in that hand. Now, that's kind of important, so keep that in mind. Just kind of put that in the back of your head, and we'll get back to that. The next important thing that we see here is his sash. So he has a sash on his left side or our right side, as well as like as a skirt or a tabard. And again, that is also very important. Now, the last thing with Ganondorf here that's really, really interesting is the sort of, I guess you could say, like buckle or, little item here on his waist that is holding his sash together. At first, it looked like a horseshoe, and I thought that was interesting. But upon further inspection, it actually looks a lot like the symbol for Omega, or the end. So that's really interesting to see him wearing this sort of, jewel that is indicative of the symbol, which means the end. The next thing we see is poor Zelda falling down into the earth. Now, I don't want to completely rule out Zelda being a prominent character, because in the first Breath of the Wild and in Hyrule Warriors, she was pretty prominent story-wise. She had her heroine's journey, especially in Hyrule Warriors. She was a very integral part of both of those stories, not just because she was Zelda, but because of the things she did and her actions and her interactions. So I don't really think Nintendo would just kind of shaft her like that in the next game. They could, and that would be kind of interesting. But I still feel like there's a lot more to Zelda in this game than we're seeing here. And of course, the next thing is we get a flash of light and Link falling down from the sky, Skyward Sword style. Now, I love the shot so much because it reminded me of Skyward Sword, and the intro music actually reminded me a lot of what it would be like if the Breath of the Wild theme was mixed with the Ballad of the Goddess. It's very, very similar to that. So there's a lot to take in here. First of all, look how beautiful the clouds look in this game. It's so freaking beautiful. But the next thing we see, so obviously we see the hand that attached itself onto Link, basically. And we see that it's kind of growing onto his arm a bit. I don't know if that's like a gradual process. If maybe like by the end of the game, it's kind of like completely overtaken Link. That would be interesting to see. But you can obviously tell that that hand is definitely embedded itself into Link, and he's got like these sort of veiny tattoos almost. He's got a new outfit, but if you look very closely, Link has the same exact outfit that Ganondorf is wearing in that first shot. The outfit is almost exactly the same. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to what this could mean. I'll get to that in a second, but just kind of keep that in mind, that their outfits are very, very similar. And of course, Link has let his hair down. I know there's been a bit of a confusion, but Link has always had this long hair. Link in Breath of the Wild has his hairs up in ponytails. But if you actually wear the Guardian helmet and you turn Link around, you will actually see that he has long hair from the start. So we see more islands. Really, really cool to see that this is more than likely going to be a very open world game again, which I don't know why people are complaining about that, to be honest. I think that is the best direction for Zelda, is open world, but that's my personal opinion. I'm not a big fan of super linear things like Skyward Sword. I love the story of Skyward Sword, but I always felt that the gameplay was just so tiny and just kind of like you could only go this way, just of how linear it was. But in this shot in particular, it's really interesting. We've got the paraglider again. We've got Link with a new shield, which again has a really interesting symbol on it. It's actually very similar to something we're going to see again here in the trailer. I'm not sure if it's Sheikah, if it's Yiga, or if it's some other third thing, which could be like the Zonai or something like that. We also see in the background this really, really huge structure that wasn't present in Breath of the Wild. So what I gather from this is that this structure, or some of these islands, were actually already in the sky, way above the clouds. And this brings me to my first theory, is that we're going to be returning to something Skyward Sword related. We're going to get a little bit more into the similarities, but this is kind of the first similarity. This has a lot of similarities to structures from Skyward Sword, and already there are so many similarities, from the music being very similar to the way Link dives in the sky, the paraglider, all these other things. I really feel like that Nintendo did Skyward Sword HD intentionally before Breath of the Wild 2. So it's really interesting to see, are we going to be returning to something like Skyloft or something like the Sky Temple? And in this next shot, we see quite a bit here. We see more of these sort of islands, these floating islands. And we also see these little gates. Now, so we see the first gate here sort of on the bottom of the shot, but we also see a gate way up at the top of the island, sort of straight ahead. So to me, what it seems like, these little structures are basically portals in place of the shrines now. It really seems like that, unless we're gonna be flying on a loft wing again. I don't think Link can just flap his arms and fly. So it definitely, to me, seems like those are gonna be sort of portals. And if we look at this next shot here with this guy, again, going back to what I said, this guy is what's on the shield. So it's really interesting to see. I don't know if this is a bad guy or a good guy, like if he's an enemy, a boss, or something. He's controlled by the same magic that was embedded into Link's hand. So that's really interesting. You'll notice in the background, too, another structure. And you'll see a recurring thing with like these egg things. There's these little egg flower somethings on this guy's shoulders. There's one in the background there. There's another one in the background. And they kind of make an appearance just sort of scattered through this trailer. So, are these egg things, important to some extent? And of course, we see us back on the ground again with Link sailing across. Now, this is interesting how Link on the ground setting has his normal garbs, but in the sky, he has that sort of new robe and sash. So it's really interesting. This is a theory that I've kind of seen spun around, but this is something that I kind of think would be interesting, is the Link that we see here is not the same Link that we see here. These are two different Links. And the reason for that is, unless Nintendo decides to do crazy customization things, it's really odd to me to see him, changing clothes so much in a single trailer. So I really, really, really feel like that the Link that we see in the sky is either not the same Link, or it is Link traveled back in time, so his clothes changed with him, and I'll get to that in a second. So we get the Bokoblins with their new horns and the Stone Talus. It's really cool to see platform enemies kind of just carrying them around. And of course, we see the green enveloping Link's hand. Now, something interesting here is if you look at his hand, he has really long nails. Very similar to Ganondorf the beginning of the trailer and just throughout the trailer, it's really interesting why his fingernails are sort of similar to Ganondorf's. I'm not necessarily saying that Link is Ganondorf, but it is quite interesting. And then we see these cool runes on the side that I have no idea what they mean. I'm sure they'll eventually be deciphered. But now the next thing that is super interesting that I have to point out is Link doesn't use a Sheikah Slate anymore. He's using his hand. Now, this kind of defeats the theory that I had of them being different Links. But look at this. Link uses his hand almost like the Force to not just stop this spiky ball, but to send it back in time, basically, and just reverse it. Which is really, really interesting because this sort of technology has a similarity to the Time Stones in Skyward Sword. And it's a very similar effect with the way it kind of envelops the world around it, and it kind of goes back in time. Now, the next thing that I wanted to point out was, do you notice that little hole type thing in Link's hand? It's not really a hole, but it's like there's like a circle on the back of his hand. That's very similar, in my opinion, to the hole on Ganondorf's hand that he has. So I'm wondering if this ancient power is both used by Link and Ganondorf. And, you know, how closely related are they in terms of rivals? And that kind of goes back to my theory about, if you look at the old sort of Hyrule history lessons that Impa and Cass give you in Breath of the Wild, you'll see that Link not only has long hair, but seemingly has this big sash, this green sash coming off the side of him. So does this mean that we will be playing as Link the Ancient Hero, or Link will be essentially reliving those memories or something similar, and Ganondorf, you know, will be that? It's really, there's so much to take in. My mind can't take it all. There's so much to take in, so much to speculate, but just kind of food for thought, like, this is interesting. These are interesting similarities. So in this shot, we got something real cool. Link is using a flamethrower, which the design of the head is the same design as the Zonai structures. So I don't want to say Zonai confirmed, but Zonai confirmed. This is really interesting that a lot of us have kind of talked about this before, and it seems like the Zonai will play an integral part to this story. Now, you'll also see when Link is firing this weapon that there is green energy within it. So I really feel like that a lot of these weapons and things are like power-ups that the hand basically provides to Link as he progresses. I kind of think of it like, instead of the Sheikah Slate upgrading its bombs and stasis and stuff, Link can upgrade these items basically, and his own powers, by doing whatever he's doing. Whether it's, you know, placing his hand on the stone altar that we actually see in this shot over here, or, you know, whatever the case may be. I feel like we might be getting more linear weapons with this. So really interesting, but definitely I think a lot of these weapons are from the Zonai, or from the green hand, which I'm just going to call the green hand the Zonai hand because I'm almost like 99% sure that it has something to do with the Zonai. And we see a reverse water drop. Now this is huge because this is a reverse of the Sheikah water drop. When you put the Sheikah Slate on the tower, you're upgrading the Sheikah Slate. It's almost a reversal to that. So could that mean a reversal of time, just like the reversal of the Time Stones in Skyward Sword? Could it be, you know, Link being able to travel back in time? You know, what could that mean? Very, very interesting. And then we also see Link with his new ability to travel through structures, which is really, really interesting, using the power of the green hand. And he kind of pops out, and it's so cool. But again, so you see right here on this shot, you see the little egg thing, which I'm assuming are just lights, but they're very similar to the Time Stones, and I'm not leaving that idea. But look at all of these structures. It's so odd, just all these structures that just kind of appeared out of nowhere. Now the next thing is, you see this little altar here. Now I'm sticking by the idea that these are sort of portals or teleportation zones, basically like Sheikah towers or shrines. So I'm wondering, there's like a little shrine right here, right here. Could this be where Link powers up? Could this be where you get whatever the equivalent of the spirit orbs are? That's what I think, but only time will tell. And then, of course, we see the castle that is basically rising off the ground because of Ganondorf. And we hear a somber Zelda's lullaby on the Erhu. So this looks just absolutely amazing. And of course we get the 2022 release date. There's so much about this trailer that is just huge, guys. This is amazing. I am so excited for this game. I'm glad that it's coming out in 2022. Hopefully it comes out earlier than later, but I assume that it's going to be holiday 2022. But again, only time will tell. But this has been such a fun video, guys, just kind of dissecting this and kind of just lightly touching theories. But I called it! All of you, I called it in my Girahim video that it would be so interesting if we had a Zelda game that tied into Skyward Sword to some extent and had the breaking of the cycle or had some sort of anything. Why is Ganondorf wearing the Greek symbol for Omega or the end? Why, you know, why are there so many similarities to Skyward Sword? To me, this just screams the theory that I had in my Girahim video. If you haven't seen that video, go watch it. It's in the card up above. Actually, you know what? No, I'm just going to post it on the screen right here. You guys need to go watch it because I give that theory in that video and I was right, or I think I'm right. I hope I'm right. I know I obviously don't know 100% if I'm right. But if I end up being right, I'm going to make a video just telling you guys I was right. Because, guys, I want this to happen. I want there to be this sort of breaking of the cycle and this sort of, you know, just, you know? Because it's not like they can't make Zelda games in different parts of the timelines and stuff. So, you know, why can't you break the cycle with this game? And then you can do more games that break the cycle in their own ways. So it's just... Yeah. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like.